Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
It wouldn't be a stretch if you argued that statistically tourism is the largest industry in North and South Carolina. It is more than the sum of golf or a beach experience or a mountain getaway, but the halo effect of tourism imbues most all aspects of Carolina living. Welcome back to the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William. And as we start to hit our stride in the 2014 summer season, we analyze the issues and talk about the challenges going on now. Please stay with us.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded June 13th, 2014. On this week's program, Lynn Minges of the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, Brad Dean from the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce, and special guest Duane Parrish, Director of the South Carolina Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Now, here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Happy summer. And I know you both love this time of year, don't you?
We do.
This is the tourism season.
And rightly so, it should be. You know, Lynn, welcome back to the program. Good to have you back.
Good to be here.
Year over year, just broad brushstrokes, year over year, 2013 to 2014, how is this season shaping up so far?
So far, so good. I think we're seeing the benefits of a healthier economy, stronger economy. From the restaurant and lodging perspective, which makes up a pretty large part of the tourism industry, we're seeing growth as large as 4%. So 5 consecutive years of growth in North Carolina, and we're feeling pretty good.
So you feel like you're ahead of where we were last year?
Definitely ahead, yes.
Yeah. Brad, same thing.
Oh, absolutely. Not only are we ahead of last year, I think we're exceeding the pre-recession limits. Tourists are starting to stay a little longer, spend a little more. We've even seen a couple of months where there's been double-digit growth. And the most encouraging sign, in my view, Chris, is the number of new visitors that are coming to the Carolinas that never visited here before. And that bodes very well for future growth opportunities.
Okay, policy. South Carolina legislature wrapped up their State House session not long ago. North Carolina legislature working on that. For the last couple of years, almost 3 years now, the Republicans have been in charge in North Carolina, and a lot of policy has changed. How has that affected tourism?
You know, I think we've been pretty safe from a lot of the discussions that have gone on. We enjoy support from both the Democrats and Republicans. And so we found the climate to be pretty favorable. I think right now there's a real keen interest on both sides of the aisle on growing jobs and growing the economy, a real commitment to that. Many of our businesses in the hospitality industry are small business owners, and so I think the General Assembly, the governor, has been very, very interested in helping to grow our industry and do the kinds of things that will make it flourish. And so we're feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah. What about policy in the Palmetto State?
You know, Chris, this year's legislative session in South Carolina may be better defined by what did not happen than what did, but there were some positives. The General Assembly got behind the governor's bold initiative to increase funding for public education. They did make a recurring commitment to tourism promotion, not just through the destination-specific program, but also through helping to promote undiscovered South Carolina and some other long overdue legislation like a ban on texting while driving and ethics reform. Unfortunately, we left the big job undone, and if the South Carolina General Assembly were a student and infrastructure was a class, the report card would say little Johnny did a lot of talking, but he didn't finish his homework and got an F this year in the class. We have got to fund higher funding for infrastructure is critical, and we've got to find a way to do that in South Carolina. Otherwise, we're going to continue to fall behind.
Yeah, let me stay with you for just a second, because that's been the debate in both Carolinas about infrastructure and transportation, but specific to the Grand Strand, Brad. you know, is getting to the Grand Strand. And this has been going on for 30 or 40 or 50 years now. So is there any hope that there will be an I or an interstate finally terminating somewhere? And when would that be? Because I know you've been on that particular badge you've been wearing now since, well, the crust of the earth cooled. And I'm wondering when I-73 is going to happen.
Well, I-73 has to be a priority, number one, because it's going to create 29,000 jobs within the Myrtle Beach area in that region. Some of those jobs will go to the PD, which has been devastated economically in recent years. It'll help grow tourism and bring other industry, which helps us diversify the economy. And most importantly of all, Chris, it may help save lives in the event of a hurricane. There's a little bit of money being applied each year, but we're on the 100-year plan right now, and we've got to speed that up. And I think, frankly, in our state, we want to have a world-class economy, but we can't do it with a third world infrastructure system. And we're not looking to Washington for answers right now. I think it's going to take some bold leadership to step up and do what North Carolina has done for many years, and that is invest in infrastructure. And in a state where we have far too many people unemployed, infrastructure may be the best job creation tool that we have in the near future.
You know, challenge in North Carolina, Lynn, has been, at least recently, has been the debate around film incentives.
Yes.
However it goes now, and even later on this year or maybe next session or whenever, do you feel like that bell's already been rung in that if North Carolina policymakers, public policymakers, have pretty much stated that they're not big film incentive fans. So if that's the case, don't most companies, whether there's an incentive or not now in North Carolina, have pretty much X'd North Carolina off the short list?
I do think we're beginning to see the impact of that, which is unfortunate because it's been a big driver of the hospitality industry. Those folks who come into film and support filmmaking stay in hotels and eat in restaurants, and it's been an important part of what we have enjoyed in the hospitality industry. We are seeing the effects of that. We had a 25% tax credit in North Carolina. That was our sweet spot. With that, we were seeing record high film production in our state. We enjoyed an influx of filmmaking. We were widely regarded as one of the best places in the country to make films. Pretty cost efficient, great workforce, great infrastructure. With the debate about incentives and just the debate itself about incentives, it's caused a lot of filmmakers to look other places, and we're starting to see filmmaking fleeing to other places. I think we'll continue to see that erode. Our workers will begin to take up jobs in other locations, other states, and the studio facilities may go under here. So it's sad. Yeah, no,
I know that has been a contentious debate, and one that you can point to that says, well, film incentives aren't bad. On the other side of the aisle, they say, well, yeah, they're not bad, but the incentives don't bring the kind of return on investment that some other industries do. There's much more debate about that. Sure. Brad, you're not getting a pass on Biker Week. Gosh, a tough time, whenever there's a death or any kind of negative news that comes out of biker weeks, I should say, down on the Grand Strand, it seems to undermine a lot of the positive message that's been coming off of the South Carolina coast for many years. So even Governor Haley came out and said, this is just not a good thing anymore. How do you offset that? You're in the middle of it. You hear what your constituents say about, yes, but we like having that kind of activity, just not the negative activity. How do you balance that? What goes through your mind?
Well, Chris, as you know, Myrtle Beach is one of America's premier vacation destinations, and for 51 weeks out of the year, we are a very safe and welcoming community. What happened this year during Memorial Day weekend is tragic and unacceptable, but it was also predictable. For a number of years now, our community has been overrun and overwhelmed by a large, unruly event that has gotten increasingly out of control, and that has to change. In Myrtle Beach, just like any other community in the Carolinas, Memorial Day ought to be a celebration of our true American heroes amidst picnics and parades and backyard barbecues. And so what we're going to have to do is renew our commitment to end this event, stand behind the governor. She's 100% right on this one. We have got to take back control and ensure a safe, welcoming environment. And to those communities or residents or businesses that think that this is helpful because it brings in a lot of business, I have one simple message, and that is if your business is dependent upon an out-of-control event that overwhelms our community and puts jobs or puts lives in jeopardy, you need a new business model. And so we're going to have to invest in additional law enforcement and take a very aggressive approach to ensuring that our residents and our visitors are safe.
Don't you get the sense, though, in about 30 seconds, don't you get the sense that most bikers aren't looking to burn something down, but rather be responsible vacationers?
Yeah, the issue here is not about bikers and it's not about bikes, it's about behavior. And when someone comes to our community, we expect them to obey the laws. And if they will, we welcome them. But if you're coming to our community and you don't intend to obey the laws, we just assume you stay home or go somewhere else.
What's the sense of, and again, I keep thinking about more questions about this. All along the Grand Strand, is it a sense that they like to have the bikers down there, they just don't want the bad behavior, or have they run out of patience?
Well, you've got really two different issues. When you look at the Harley-Davidson rally, it's a much older crowd, and the issues we deal with there for the most part are noise and congestion, and we're managing that, and it's gotten much better. The issue during Memorial Day weekend is a much younger crowd, but they're young adults, and they should come and behave like adults. And I think clearly what you're hearing, the outcry recently, is residents, visitors, and businesses are saying enough is enough. We need to end the mayhem on Memorial Day weekend. And from our perspective, it's a lot easier to message safety than it is to message mayhem and confusion.
So are you saying the Harley-Davidson crowd is more of a Cialis and Medicare supplement Part A? Or
well, they're a little farther along in the aging process, and they certainly seem to behave differently than the Memorial Day crowd.
Okay, well put. Thank you all. Stay with us, please. Next week on our program, she is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Education Lottery. Her name is Paula Harper Bethay. She has been on this program before, has something to say about education and the funding of education. And also coming up this summer, some great programs. NC State has got it going on in so many ways, and we will have the Chancellor from NC State on. Randy Woodson will be here. Also, sometime in the mix, Bob Ingram from Hatteras Venture Partners and the RTP, and as well as North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory will be here as well. Funny thing about PRT is it's not just a cool little set of acronyms, but it is the agency in South Carolina that deals with tourism, and they've been doing it well for many years. Joining us now is the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, Duane Parrish. Mr. Director, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Duane, when you look back, well, same question, year over year, 2014 compared to 2013, are you ahead of where you would expect you to be? And what do you think is going to be, what do you think 2014 is going to be when we look back on it?
14 should be another record year. 13 was the year we surpassed all of our pre-recession markers from 2007, which was a benchmark year. For us, it's heads in the beds, feet in the fairways, and people in the parks. And we measure that through Hotel RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, up about 10% this year. Again, we surpassed that number in 2013, and we're up again through the first 4 months of 14. Admissions taxes, which are collected on things like golf and attractions and events, up about 3%. State park revenue up about 8%. So those are some of our benchmarks that we follow, and I expect 14 to be another record year.
Do you feel, coming off the session in the State House, that this was a good year for tourism, or was it an innocuous year? How do you feel about policy this year for tourism?
Well, I think it was a good year for tourism. We have some additional marketing funds. We have the ability now to, I think, make an impact in some of what we call undiscovered South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Brad Dean and the folks along the coast in Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, and Charleston have some state funding, and they have some of their own funding, and they do a wonderful job. And obviously, from some of the numbers I just mentioned, have done a wonderful job. What we're trying to do is move the needle now in those rural areas, and what we call undiscovered South Carolina. Places like Aiken, where there's an equestrian mix, and also, also in Camden. Places in the upstate like Oconee, where the beautiful, the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then we also have places along the coast like Georgetown and Beaufort that we think we can make an impact there where they don't have the infrastructure or the funding from a tourism perspective, but we can make that impact. And those are a lot of those are niche-based markets: hunting, fishing, kayaking, hiking. Boating, those kinds of things, but a little more difficult to reach that target market. But if we put another 100 people in Myrtle Beach, I'm not sure Brad will notice it, but if we can get another 100 people in Allendale County, it'll show up in their retail sales tax and their accommodation taxes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we can make an impact.
Lynn?
You raised some really good points. I know, having been a state tourism director, it's a real challenge to try to make sure that every hotel in your state benefits, that every travel-related business benefits, and every community benefits. What role does research play in driving the decisions, the investments that you make at the state level?
Sure, it's a big one. As a matter of fact, we just brought another research person on. I believe research we can always be that third-party relevant research for folks like Brad, who are trying to look back and see exactly how things came about. I think research is critical, particularly in small towns. More difficult in small towns to track, but we require some boots on the ground sometimes to be able to see the impact of the numbers. But I think we can do that through more research. But it is critical. We'll always be that third-party endorsement, I think, and should be for a lot of the state.
I think, just to follow up on that, I think that's one of the real strengths of the Carolinas compared to other parts of the state, is that we've really focused on research to try to drive demand and drive our investments, and I think that'll continue to play a big role in growing tourism in the Carolinas.
Sure.
You know, I'm interested, since you did run tourism for a long time in North Carolina, Lynn, and now, Duane, you're in the driver's seat in South Carolina. Where are the opportunities between both states to work more closely?
I think first and foremost, international. I think we have an opportunity to pool our funding. We have an international airport in Charlotte that serves both states. International impact from a United States standpoint, we fell behind market share after post 9/11. We lost market share dramatically, and we're just now starting to get that back with the growth of Brand USA, which is sort of the United States CVB, if you will. We're now starting to get that back, and I think where we can partner with even Georgia, North Carolina, and the like. You know, borders, I don't know, mean a whole lot to visitors, particularly visitors from Europe and from Canada, because quite frankly, it's the Carolinas, and they go home and they say, well, we went to the Carolinas, or we went to wherever, the beach or golf or mountains or what have you. I don't know that the border is that important. So we go as partnership now through organizations like Travel South. Sometimes we'll break down into just 2 states. We recently went to the UK in 2013 with the state of North Carolina and Georgia and partnered. Basically, we're trying to sell those states amongst the European market to bring more inbound travelers, because the European travelers and international travelers stay longer and spend more money, and that's the ultimate traveler for us.
Duane, you did something unique that most of us wouldn't ever consider doing. You left a very successful business career and went in to lead a very successful government agency, but have, by all accounts, been extremely successful and brought it even farther along. What was that like, and how do you go into a government bureaucracy and bring a business perspective and accomplish so much in such a short amount of time?
Sure, sure. As a hotelier, and having been in, as a hotelier since I was 15 years old, always realized that I thought PRT is, as I come back to my heads in the beds comment from earlier, is one of the major focuses of the agency. It gave me an opportunity to bring that and put it in place. And I quickly said that. Matter of fact, I even said that to the governor in the interview. I said, she asked me, she said, what would you want to accomplish would be? And I told her then, it's heads in the beds, feet in the fairways, and people in the parks. I said, if we're not doing those 3 things, we're not doing what we should be. What she has allowed me to do is, she said, look, I've got your back. Treat it like a business, do those kinds of things, whether it be the park system, whether it be tourism. And that's allowed me to do some things, quite frankly, that probably a little quicker maybe than some of my predecessors were able to do. Having her support and the General Assembly support has allowed me to move forward on some things and do some outside the box things, quite frankly, that, and I mentioned, about the park system. I think we can become more operationally self-sufficient in our state parks, still be the best price value for the guest. But those, and I talked about undiscovered South Carolina, those are in areas that we can, where our state parks are a tourism product in many cases, and I think we have an opportunity to expose those to more visitors to our state.
So should tourism be a freestanding, revenue positive agency?
I don't know that the tourism side can be, but the state parks can be freestanding. We can be operationally self-sufficient, and we should hit that actually in this calendar year, in 2014. We should be operationally self-sufficient. That frees us up from having to rely on the General Assembly, and Lord forbid we have another 2008 and 9 and 10 come along, where the conversations around closing state parks puts us in a better position to be financially self-sufficient from that standpoint, where the taxpayer is not, we're not having to rely on the taxpayer dollar. From the tourism side, it will always require promotion, but we have to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. And the rest of the Southeast and the rest of the states around us are promoting. Some states around the country have actually tried to not do tourism promotion, and it's come back to bite them, and they've typically gone back the other way and gone in full force. Connecticut and Colorado come to mind, have done that and sort of learned a hard lesson, and I think we have to maintain it from a tourism marketing standpoint to sort of keep up with our other states. We have the assets, we just have to let people know they're there.
I think tourism in both the Carolinas does a pretty good job of taking state dollars and leveraging that to induce local dollars as well as private sector dollars to market and promote together. I think that's one of the things we do exceptionally well.
Yeah, we do. We have our destination specific, which Myrtle Beach is a beneficiary of, requires $2 on the private side locally to be matched by the $1 of the public money on the state side. We have our tourism advertising grant, which is for those undiscovered areas, a 1-to-1 match. I think where we can match it, where everyone has skin in the game, the outcome is more likely to be better.
Right.
Duane, picking up on where Lynn was going with that, when you think about the impact that tourism has on the Carolinas, and we talk about millions of tourists, but we also have to be mindful of the tens of thousands of jobs it created. And those aren't just jobs for statistical numbers. Those are jobs that put Christmas presents under the tree, they put food on the table, and they pay for college education and mortgages. Do you think that tourism gets the respect that it deserves in the Carolinas, or are we still the Rodney Dangerfield of economic development?
Yes.
I don't know that we're still Rodney Dangerfield. I think we don't, just no respect. I think we've come a long way in terms of, we shout from the mountaintop as much as we can now about the benefits of tourism. We employ 1 out of every 10 people in the state. We talk about those benefits, and it's not just the minimum wage job any longer. I mean, rarely there minimum wage jobs out there. It's typically above that now, even at starting points. And there are many, many people in mid-level and upper management and ownership that do quite well financially. But probably one of the biggest things tourism does, it creates that quality of life that allows us to attract the Boeings that have recently come to Charleston and the BMWs that come to the upstate. So I like to tell Bobby Hitt, our commerce director, I said, no one brings a business here without coming as a visitor first. And when they come as a visitor, they're looking for that experience they had, but they're also looking at that quality of life, education, those types of things. But I think that quality of life is where tourism plays a big part.
Yeah, I know it's going through your head over there, Lynn, when you think about the Rodney Dangerfield. You say, yes, that's the case that sometimes public policymakers don't give it. Let's talk about public policy for a second, Duane.
Sure.
In both Carolinas, education debate has been front and center. And lawmakers in South Carolina, lawmakers in North Carolina are making some headway. One of the criticisms that the educators have is they say, tourism has been one of our biggest challenges because they keep debating, they keep the line on the school calendar. In other words, we're not going to have year-round school as long as the tourism lobby has anything to do with that. How do you counter that? What do you say about that?
Well, I think from a tourism standpoint, yes, the summer season is big and will always be there, but year-round school, if you think back, I don't know that any of the 4 of us did year-round school, and I think we probably did okay. I think the assumption that you forget everything from the end of May to the beginning of September or even mid-August or whenever you start is a fallacy that we really haven't. If things are forgotten in that short of a time period, we're not really teaching the children what they should know, whether it be first, second, or all the way up to 12th grade. So I'm not sure I buy the year-round argument that that's the best thing for that. There are a lot of other variety of reasons. I think that tourism, traditionally it has grown up, at least in my generation and the one after me in many respects, where the summer is that summer vacation. They're maybe not as long now, they're not always 7 days, but there are those summer vacations. The one plus, if it does go to year-round, is there'll still be big breaks in between there, whether it not be the summer, it'll still be the fall, winter, spring, what have you. So still an opportunity from a tourism standpoint to make those, it just becomes more sporadic in terms of promotional. Right now we target a promotional season for the summer, for that summer vacation traveler. That becomes a little more difficult and a little more expensive if it becomes on a year-round basis.
We have about a minute left for a question.
The important part to keep in mind about the summer calendar is that we need those months, June, July, August, for the tourism season to put heads in beds to generate revenue, but also for the students who earn their living a lot of times. They make their money that they can then pay to go off to college and that kind of thing. So that's an important dynamic too. It provides jobs for students in the summertime.
We have about a minute left. Do you have a question?
Oh, another question of you is golf is big in both the Carolinas. We're coming off a very successful men and women's open down in Pinehurst.
Yes.
You all have great golf tournaments and great golf courses all over your state and in Myrtle Beach. Talk to us a little bit about why that's so important.
Golf's very important. We have 360 public courses in the state. We've had hosted the 2012 PGA Championship at Kiowa Island. Every year the RBC Heritage presented by Boeing takes place since 1969 at Hilton Head. It is a driver of a lot of the coastal tourism, but not just the coast. I think in some of we have beautiful courses up in the upstate and in the mountain ridge too. It's important. It's probably over 20% of our we spend about 20% of our marketing funds on golf specific. Even our leisure spot has a golf thing in it, just sort of acknowledging that's an important part of it. But I think the year-round weather makes that a great thing for our state. Yeah,
that's going to have to be the last word. And we're not even going to get into the debate between where barbecue originated, South Carolina and North Carolina. Well, there's a big push in South Carolina about that, but we're going to leave that alone. Come back and talk about that part.
Okay, be glad to.
Good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brad, always nice to have you.
My pleasure.
Good luck going forward. And Lynn, nice to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Thank you. We're almost out of time. Before we get out of here, though, I just want to recognize and thank someone for his participation. We get a shot of Jerry Thomas on camera back there. You got a shot? Can you get a shot of him? Okay, that's the guy. Jerry, thanks for being on the program all these years. Good luck to you and wherever you're heading. We're going to miss you. I'm looking that way because it's off camera. Until next week, I'm Chris William, and we certainly hope that your summer season is good and exciting and that your business is good as well. Again, until next weekend, good night. Bye.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care, when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.